Hi, I'm Callie King from CRK Training and Horsemanship, and welcome back to the blog. We have something a little bit different for you this week. What we're going to do in this week's video is give you a little kind of crash course in horse conformation. So I've got my two horses here. This is my horse Penelope, and this is Molly. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of compare these two horses and show you some of the things to look for, what's good, what's not so good. That way you can, if you're looking for a new horse, or even if you just want to evaluate your own horse, you can know where maybe the trouble spots are or where the really good things are in that horse's conformation. So I'm going to start here with Molly. The first thing that you want to think about when you're looking at a horse's conformation is just the overall picture. So, do they look nice? And most of the time, that's kind of your best gauge, because if a horse looks a little bit disproportionate, or he looks long, or he just kind of looks weird, that's your first sign that maybe the conformation's not quite what it should be. So I'm going to start here with Molly. Generally, she's a very, well put together mare. See if I can just square up here. And this is another thing, when you're evaluating conformation, try to have the horse standing as squarely as possible, because that'll help you a lot in being able to, kind of judge how everything looks and how everything fits together. So Molly is a warm blood. She's a Holsteiner mare. So she's got, bigger bone structure, and she's a pretty big mare. She's about 16 hands. So the first things that I want to point out on her is, if you take a look at her neck here, she's got a nice long sloping neck. She's also got good muscling right here on her top line going along her neck, and her shoulder is nice and well sloped. So the shoulder should slope at about a 45-degree angle. And a nice, long, well-sloped shoulder is going to mean a more comfortable, long flowing stride as compared to a shoulder that is short and that sits a little bit more like this. So if the shoulder's a little more upright, the horse is going to have more of an up and down, kind of a choppier step. So as we look at the rest of the top line on Molly, we want to see, one, that it's filled in, so that it's not concave here, or that we can't really see the spine protruding at all, because that would mean that the horse is, number one, probably lacking weight and lacking muscle, but also some horses just naturally have a much better, well-muscled top line. So we see on Molly, she's got, everything looks pretty smooth, looks nice and solid all the way back through here. Now the next thing I'm going to point out on her is the hip. So this is also, a horse's hip is a very important factor in their conformation and how they're going to perform athletically. So what we want to see on the hip, you want to mainly look at this angle. So right here to right here. Now she's got a pretty close to ideal angle. If her pelvis sits a little bit more like this, you're going to have a less powerful hind end. Where if this angle is a little bit steeper, you're going to have more power from the hind end. So a horse that you're doing jumping, dressage, anything that requires a lot of collection and power from the horse's hindquarters, you want to see a good angle here that's decently steep. Now going down through the legs, you want to just everything in the legs should look nice and straight first. So both viewed from the side, you don't want the knee to be out or under. And also, if you view the horse from the front, you want all their joints and the bones to just look like they line up nice and straight on the horse. Now the next thing that you're going to look at is the angle of the pastern. Let me see if I can get her just take a step forward. So if a horse has a more upright pastern, if the angle looks a little bit more like this, it's going to again give them a choppier stride. Now on the flip side, if the horse has a really long pastern, or it's angled out a lot like this, that's going to make that area weak. So you're going to have more chances for sprains or strains throughout the entire lower leg if those pasterns are really long and aren't going to support the movement of the horse. So those are just kind of some of the main things that you want to look at as you're evaluating conformation. So Molly's pretty good. There's not a whole lot on her that I would really pick at. She's a well-bred mare, and she's just put together pretty nicely. So to give you some comparison now, I'm going to move over to Nell. And even though I love Nell, and she does, you know, she does what I need her for, there's definitely some things on her that are not ideal conformationally. So one of the first things, and I didn't actually point this out when I was talking about top line on Molly, but when you look at a horse's top line, you want their withers and their butt to be fairly level. So if you look at Nell here, her withers are actually lower than the top of her rump here. So that means she's called downhill. So her body kind of slopes downhill, and when you ride her, she has trouble doing collection. She has trouble getting her hind end under her because her shoulders are lower. So if you just kind of think about it anatomically, when her butt's up here, it's not as easy for her to get light in the front end and really stride underneath of herself like she would need to do for dressage or to do a tight jumper course or something like that. Now the one other thing that is one of Nell's biggest flaws conformationally is her knees. So Nell is a little bit under at the knee. So if you look at her front leg, see how it kind of goes a little bit like this. So she's never had a soundness issue up there, but because she's got that little bit of a flaw, she's going to be predisposed to possibly having issues there if she was in really heavy work or something. And another thing, if you just kind of look at her, you can get an idea of how she's going to move compared to Molly, because all her angles are a little bit more upright. So her shoulder sits a little bit more like this, where Molly's was a little longer and a little bit more of a sloping shoulder. Nell's also a little bit more upright in her pasterns, not extreme, but just a little more. And all those things add up to a more up and down, a little bit choppier stride. So with these two guys, it's not a huge difference, but it's definitely there. And as you get used to looking at horses and evaluating conformation, you can start to see the differences in how Molly's going to move compared to how Nell is going to move, even if you just look at them and you don't actually get to see them, you know, trotting or cantering around. So I hope that this was an interesting and a little bit different blog post for you this week. If you have any questions, or if there's any part of the horse that I didn't touch on that maybe you're curious about, just put it in the comments.